Welcome back Team FD. This week we are making an 11 of the worst players to ever win the Champions League. We did a very similar video 4 years ago, so here is an updated list of some unlikely contenders to have lifted that famous trophy. Let's go. Goalkeeper, Kiko Casilla. We picked Chelsea's Ross Turnbull 4 years ago, so Kiko Casilla is our goalie this time round. The former Real Madrid stopper collected a Champions League winners medal on 3 occasions from 2016 onwards, though like Turnbull he would only watch on from the bench. In total he played 43 times for Los Blancos, including a few appearances on the European stage, but he never looked like a permanent threat to the number 1 position in Madrid. The signing of Thibaut Courtois proved to be the final straw for the Spaniard at the Bernabeu, and in January 2019 he was off to join Leeds United's promotion push in the Championship. In fairness to the 33-year-old, aside from a few high-profile blunders, only Fulham's Marek Rodak has a better clean sheet percentage than him this season, while he ranks 7th in the division for save percentage too. Next year we will find out if Casilla is a top-level keeper again, but one thing's for sure, he won't be back in the Champions League anytime soon. Defender, Oligar. If you were challenged to name the Barcelona starting 11 that beat Arsenal way back in 2006, the chances are the player you would miss is right back Oligar. The Spaniard spent the majority of his career with the Catalan Giants, but never really captured the imagination of the Camp Nou. He would only make 127 first-team appearances in La Liga during 7 years at the club, with his sole period as a consistent starter coming between 2004 and 2006. And in the final itself, Oligar had a bit of a shocker. The Spaniard still struggled to contain Thierry Henry and Freddie Ljungberg, picked up a booking and was eventually hauled off for Giuliano Belletti on the 71st minute, with his Brazilian replacement going on to score the winner 10 minutes later. That proved to be the peak of Oligar's limited career, as his game time in La Liga dwindled from then on. He eventually wound up at Ajax in 2008, where he made little impression on the first team. Never really that good, today he is known more for his political activism off the pitch than any achievements in the game. Defender, Roque Jr. Roque Jr. may be heralded as one of Palmeiras' greatest ever players back in Brazil, but in Europe not much can be said for his reputation. The 48-capped Brazilian centre-half won the 2003 Champions League with AC Milan, but his career from then on left little to be desired. In England he is best remembered for an abysmal loan spell with Leeds United in 2004, during which the Whites conceded 25 times in his 7 appearances, losing 6 of those games. And that's not all, as he was even sent off on his home debut against Birmingham City. In Roque Jr.'s defence, he is fondly remembered back in Milan for playing through the whole of extra time in the Champions League final with an injury, with the club having used all their available substitutes against Juventus. But that famous night at Old Trafford was as good as it got for the Brazilian, as his career never hit those heights again. Defender, Djimi Traore. The only player from our original list to feature again, it's always worth reminding ourselves that Djimi Traore actually won the Champions League. The Malian defender is something of a cult figure at Liverpool, thanks to his countless mistakes but endearing personality that captured the imagination of the Kop. The famous chant of "Blame It on Traore" to the Jackson song demonstrating their comic affection for the defender. He joined the Reds' ranks as a 19-year-old back in 1999 and spent much of his early career captaining their reserves. It wasn't until 2002 that he began getting a look in with the first team, going on to enjoy the best 4 years of his career. The legendary 2005 Champions League final against AC Milan typified his time as a Red. It was his foul that led to the Rossoneri taking the lead, but also his goal line clearance from Andrei Shevchenko late in the game that kept Liverpool hopes alive. Unsurprisingly, his career after Anfield contains little to cheer about. A number of short spells at clubs across Europe resulted with a switch to Seattle Sounders in the MLS, where he remains today as an assistant coach. Defender, Fabio Coentrão. Some may consider this inclusion a little harsh, but it's hard to argue Fabio Coentrão's career is anything but a disappointment. Once the world's second most expensive defender, the Portuguese fullback established himself at Benfica and then Real Madrid, where he won both of his Champions League titles. In total, he made over 100 appearances for Los Blancos across a 5-year period, but saw his game heavily diminished as time went by. Traore was regularly attacked by Madrid fans unhappy with the Portuguese influence of Jose Mourinho and Jorge Mendes, while poor form and injury saw him gradually slip further away from the limelight. In 2018, and following loan spells at Sporting CP and Monaco, Madrid cancelled his contract. He would go on to join Rio Ave back in Portugal, but he simply wasn't good enough, as after a season that featured 11 yellow cards and 2 reds, his contract was once again terminated. In January 2020, Traore announced his retirement, aged just 31. Midfielder Mcdonald Moriga. When Inter Milan stormed to their last Champions League title back in 2010, it was little thanks to their Kenyan midfielder Mcdonald Moriga. The lesser known brother of former Tottenham star Victor Wanyama, Moriga had only been signed by Inter 5 months prior to the final, having impressed during a 2.5-year spell with Parma. But much of that period had come in Serie B, and the Kenyan international never looked too convincing at the top level. However, under the watchful eye of Jose Mourinho, Moriga lived out every footballer's dream, claiming a historic treble with the Nerazzurri. But he was used incredibly sparingly, collecting just 21 Serie A appearances across 4 years at the club. A severe injury to his cruciate ligament all but ended his hopes as a top-level footballer, as following loan spells with Real Sociedad and back with Parma, plus run-outs in the lower divisions of Italian and Spanish football, Moriga retired aged 30 to focus on a career in politics. He may have been the first East African player to appear in Europe's showcase competition, but he won't ever be considered the best. Midfielder Christian Karembeu. Christian Karembeu is the only player to make this team who won both the Champions League and World Cup as a member of the starting 11. But that doesn't mean his career is deserving of such honours. The Frenchman sealed a dream move to Real Madrid back in 1997, having established himself as a tough tackling midfielder with FC Nantes and then Sampdoria. And to his credit, he was on the pitch for the full 90 minutes as Los Blancos beat Juventus 1-0 in the 1998 Champions League final, playing in a midfield diamond featuring the legendary Clarence Seedorf, Fernando Redondo and Raul. But in 3 full seasons, he only made 51 appearances for Madrid in La Liga, and by the time his second Champions League final came around in 2000, he was an unused substitute. Life on the bench at the Bernabeu was followed by a dismal season with Middlesbrough, before he went through the motions in a 3-year spell at Olympiacos. The fact Karembeu is better remembered in France for his high-profile marriage to Slovakian supermodel Adriana Skleráková, rather than his achievements on the pitch, says it all about his career. Midfielder Anderson. He may have chalked up 181 appearances for Manchester United, but Anderson was never considered a world-class midfielder. Signed from FC Porto for around £20 million at just 19 years of age, Sir Alex Ferguson thought he had discovered another South American gem. Weirdly enough, United's 2008 Champions League glory was probably Anderson's finest hour in the famous red shirt. Having converted their 6th and final penalty against Chelsea in Moscow, the Brazilian was named the 2008 Golden Boy, following in the footsteps of Rooney, Messi and Aguero. Everything suggested Anderson had the potential for greatness, but it wasn't to be. From 2008 onwards, he would never manage more than 20 appearances in a single Premier League season, and never added to his selection of 8 Brazil caps. He wouldn't even reach double figures for the Red Devils in front of goal, and was eventually shipped back to Brazil in 2015, where he joined Internacional. The midfielder's career failed to reignite, and by 2020 he retired aged just 31, having fallen out of love with the game in the Turkish 2nd Division. Forward Carlos Alberto. If it wasn't for the fact Carlos Alberto opened the scoring in FC Porto's 3-0 victory over Monaco in the 2004 Champions League final, there would almost be nothing to say about his career. The Brazilian joined Jose Mourinho's Portuguese champions aged 19 in January 2004. Having impressed back in his homeland with Fluminense, and 6 months later had a Champions League winner's medal around his neck. But that was as good as it got for the attacker in Europe. By 2005, he was back in Brazil with Corinthians, having only scored twice in the Liga NOS before rejoining Fluminense on loan. To his credit, he did captain the Flusão to the 2007 Copa do Brasil title. But that still didn't justify Werder Bremen deciding to bring him back to Europe for a club record €7.8 million the same year. And what a disastrous transfer that turned out to be. Alberto only made 5 appearances in total for Bremen, costing them a staggering €1.58 million per appearance, and didn't find the net once. He spent the majority of his contract in Germany back in Brazil, where he ended up playing until 2017. What's more, various attitude problems, including a high-profile fallout with his Corinthians coach Emerson Leão, only tainted his career further. Just how he managed to win the Champions League and score in the final is impossible to fathom. Forward, Michel Padovano. A classic journeyman of Italian football, Michel Padovano almost has more clubs on his CV than he does Serie A goals for Juventus. Fortunately for the former Genoa and Napoli forward, his 2-year stint with the Old Lady coincided with their last triumph in the Champions League back in 1996. In fairness to the one-capped Italian, he did score in the quarter-final against Real Madrid and again in the shootout against Ajax in the final, but he was only ever a bit-part player for the club. After being demoted to the reserves following their European glory, Padovano suffered a serious knee injury that threatened to end his career. He was eventually sold to Crystal Palace in 1997 for £1.7 million, where his frailties were exposed, only scoring once in 12 outings. He would go on to join FC Metz before retiring at Como in 2001, his 11th and final club. But that wasn't before returning to Crystal Palace, where he tried to sue the Eagles for £1 million in unpaid wages. All things considered, it's almost criminal that Padovano managed to bag a Champions League winners' medal. But not as criminal as his later life, as in 2006 he was sentenced to 8 years in jail for trafficking hashish. Talk about the highs and lows of being a footballer. Forward, Salomon Kalou. We finish on a nice controversial choice in Salomon Kalou. Most Chelsea fans will often say the Ivorian was a selfless team player who scored some vital goals when it mattered. But in reality, he was never the prolific forward he was brought in to be, and never came close to matching the achievements of his fellow countryman Didier Drogba. In 6 seasons at Stamford Bridge, he only once reached double figures in the league or managed 15 goals in all competitions. Never really able to hold down a starting spot in the side, 107 of his 254 appearances for the club came off the bench. In his defence, he did play 84 minutes of the 2012 final against Bayern Munich, but was largely ineffective with the Germans dominating the game. It's telling that when Chelsea decided to release Kalou that same year, none of Europe's giants came in for him, and he eventually settled with Lille in France before finding his level with Hertha Berlin in Germany. Kalou isn't a bad striker and had a largely respectable career, but when you think of all the great forwards who have lifted the coveted Champions League trophy, his name isn't one of them. So that was our team of the worst Champions League winners, but what did you make of our choices? Let us know in the comments below and we'll do our best to reply. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave it a like, and why not click on screen right now for another FD banger. Thanks for watching and we'll see you next time.